I call to order the October 6, 2016 work session of Swarthmore Borough Council. This night's meeting is out of order. Usually we meet on Monday evenings, but we changed last week's meeting to Thursday and this to Thursday in recognition of the Jewish holy days that are celebrated during this period. Consequence of changing the schedule is that two of our members, maybe three, Mr. Carey will not be here tonight, and he's relevant to my discussion, is chair of the Finance Committee, and Vice President Cregan is not here tonight, and he is chair of the Public Safety Committee. So he won't be here, and neither will be here in this meeting to hear what may be said about the issue of Rutgers Avenue, Yale Avenue crossing, which I take it has many of you folks here tonight. Perhaps I can ask Mrs. Murphy if we can expect Mr. Murphy at any point during the meeting tonight.
Shower. Just go outside.
Oh, that's fine. We all appreciate that. How many people are here tonight? And so, for the roll call, we are, for tonight's meeting, permanently missing and momentarily missing Mr. Murphy, who is chair of the Public Works, Parks, and Recreation Committee of Council. How many who are here on the issue of whether there should be a crossing guard at Yale Avenue and Rutgers Avenue? Okay. Is there anybody here on any other subject? I guess that's why, well, you're here because you have to. You're paid to be here.
Some.
Okay.
I was just going to comment that I know I have commented to some people. I just want to say, in case it gets forgotten, the crossing guard will be on the agenda in a little less formal setting of the Public Safety Committee, which is the third Tuesday of the month, which I think is October. And I could confirm with David Cragen that that meeting would go on as scheduled. And that's, again, a little bit more of an informal setting where there can actually be some discussion about the crossing guard, and he does do that on the agenda.
Well, she anticipated part of what I was going to say.
Okay.
I hope you don't all want to speak tonight, but in any event, we're perfectly prepared to stay for as long as non-repetitive comments are made to us. But let me give a bit of background.
David, can I just ask, so that's the 18th, Tuesday the 18th at
7:30 p.m.
in this room?
Okay. We on council are mindful that there has been a petition circulated via the petition circulating app enlisting the participation of persons who would like to have, or families who would like to see a crossing guard on Rutgers at Yale Avenue. And so we're mindful of that. The Public Safety Committee, and I attended the Public Safety Committee, we happened to attend the one where this has already been discussed once and brought to the attention of the Public Safety Committee. But I would like to give just a little further background of the attention which Council over the last several years has given to that intersection. Not just or particularly for the safety of children crossing that intersection, but the safety of everyone trying to cross at that intersection. It was some years ago chaired by present Councilman, soon to arrive Murphy, a pedestrian and bicycle task force that looked at bike routes and walking routes throughout the borough. And a number of recommendations were made, many of which have been implemented in that regard, but 2 or 3 focal points of that study were the pedestrian crossing on Rutgers at Yale, the pedestrian crossing on Chester Road at Harvard, and the pedestrian crossing on Yale Avenue and Harvard. And that work has resulted in some grant applications to greatly enhance each of those intersections, and for purposes of tonight, in particular the Rutgers-Yale intersection, to better control those intersections for the benefit of all pedestrians. Mr. Murphy joins us. of all pedestrians, not just children, but all pedestrians who find it difficult to cross at that intersection. We have had for each of those intersections a well-engineered proposal that are intended, combined to control traffic at those intersections. None of them involve a stop sign on Yale Avenue at that point, or Yale at Harvard, or certainly not on Chester Road and Harvard. Each of them will involve, among other things, a pedestrian-controlled warning light system that can be touched before one crosses the road. Jane, the borough manager, advises that, and let me say that Yale Avenue at that point is not a state road, is not a state highway, as it is on the other side of Chester Road heading toward Crum Creek is a state road. But notwithstanding it's not a state road, but the engineers' proposed plans for those intersections had to be approved by PennDOT. And we've been waiting a long time for PennDOT to conduct its review of those plans. And Jane, borough manager, informs me today that today PennDOT gave approval to those plans. Now, that having been said, now begins the process, which involves a bidding process. Given the amount involved, it's not an enormous project in cost, but nevertheless a bidding process that Jane, given the coming of winter and the whole process, believes that those improvements are likely to be done in the spring. So, side by side with that, the Borough and Public Safety Committee has been, more generally on Yale Avenue, examining with the assistance of the borough engineer ways that might be found to reduce the speed of traffic. This is not an intersection issue necessarily, particularly, but just a speed issue on Yale Avenue, which may involve successively new flashing. You're going 35 mile an hour, you're going whatever you're going, lights, beginning with traffic, starting at Swarthmore Avenue and making their way ultimately to Chester Road. And progressively, depending upon how effective the first measures are, other steps may be taken, which include speed humps placed at two possible locations on Chester Road. These are rather on Yale Avenue. These are closer to Swarthmore Avenue than to Rutgers Avenue. They're up sort of the Dickinson and Vassar way to try to control speed in those areas. So, the matter of pedestrian crossings at Rutgers, plus several other locations, has been a focal point of council for several years. The matter of speed on Yale Avenue has been a focal point of council for several years, and in each case will continue to be so. And I will then, by way of background, as you all know, if you didn't know, you now know, there are crossing guards at 3 locations presently in the borough. There is a crossing guard right at SRS, at North Princeton and College Avenue. There's a crossing guard at Swarthmore Avenue and Forest, whatever street that is, the hills. And there's a crossing guard at College Avenue and Dorchester Road. Those crossing guards are there for half an hour in the morning and half an hour in the afternoon. That's 8:15 to 8:45 and 3:15 to 3:45. I'm told, and we're advised, and Finance Committee has been advised, that a crossing guard for those periods of time costs $7,000 a guard. So that's the cost associated with a crossing guard. It's not an enormous amount of money, but it is money. The Finance Committee, because it costs money, and the Public Safety Committee, because this is its province, will give further consideration to the request for crossing guard at Rutgers and Yale at its forthcoming meetings, at their forthcoming meetings. And you're perfectly welcome to attend the Public Safety Committee meeting, and I encourage you to do so, because the council basically acts in matters on the recommendations of its committees. And no decision will be made tonight. This is in any event, this is a work session. Next week is the legislative session. No decision will be made on this issue next week. but rather council will await the recommendation of the Public Safety Committee and incidentally of the Finance Committee on this issue at a meeting thereafter to follow. We are very concerned. I've lived in this borough since 1969. Both of my children attended Rutgers Avenue Elementary School. None of you would be here tonight if Rutgers Avenue Elementary School was still open, because you wouldn't have to cross Yale Avenue to get there. They could walk, we lived on Drexel Place, they could walk through the woods and go to school or around. And so the elementary grades in this borough have been at different places at various times. All of them at one point were on College Avenue, etc. In any event, but times change, people's willingness to observe crosswalks if you're driving seems to change. And we're mindful of that. But I wanted you to know what council has done over the last several years addressed to these kinds of issues, and the procedure that the council will follow going forward on this issue as it relates in particular to the request for a crossing guard at Rutgers and Yale. And that having been said, we welcome public comment. And please state your name, your street address. Can we fairly assume that of the 100+ people who signed the petition are all signed on behalf of families who have children affected by this issue? Or does
some may be grandparents of children who are affected by this issue?
Well, grandparents count.
They count? Okay.
Being a grandparent, I'd have my orange.
You're hitting the target audience.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, so please, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hello, my name is Diane Hull. I live at 605 University Place on the south side of Swarthmore. Myself and many of the people in this room are here tonight to request that a crossing guard be placed at Yale and Rutgers so that SRS students who live on the south side of Swarthmore can safely walk or bike to school. My husband Corey was born and raised in Swarthmore and attended what was then Rutgers Avenue Elementary School, then SRS K-8, and he graduated from Strathaven. One of the many reasons that we chose to move to Swarthmore to raise our children was the sense of independence and freedom that Swarthmore's children have. There are so few communities left in which children travel through town on their own, walking and biking to places like the library, the swim club, and to school. There are 3 main thoroughfares in Swarthmore, as you mentioned, Chester, Swarthmore, and Yale Avenue. There are currently crossing guards on both Chester Road and Swarthmore Avenue, but none on Yale, which leave children who live south of Yale to fend for themselves as they attempt to navigate across Yale on their way to school. As you also discussed, there's a widely ignored crosswalk at Yale and Rutgers where many children cross by foot or on bike. The crossing guard stationed on Chester Road is actually at an intersection with a 4-way light, and the one at Swarthmore is at a stop sign at Wellesley. A crossing guard at Yale and Rutgers would ensure that drivers obeyed the law and yielded to pedestrians in the crosswalk and would enable over 65 children to safely walk or bike to school. That was a low number that transportation could get me when I called very quickly. We did start a petition over the weekend for those in support of a crossing guard and have over 145 signatures. There are many other Swarthmore residents here tonight in support of our crossing guard proposal. I'd like to ask them to stand. Thank you. So we know the Borough Council has many line items in their budget with which you both approve and manage. The vast majority of these budget lines are for items that can be fixed or replaced. Our children cannot be fixed or replaced, and so that's why we respectfully request the funding of a crossing guard at Yale and Rutgers. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Next time.
Anybody else? I assume that I get a lot of hears to that comment. Uh-oh. No heartstring to go unplucked tonight.
My name is Declan, and I ride my bike to school mostly every day. And that intersection at Yale and Rutgers is always busy. No one stops at the crosswalk. They drive really fast. I have to wait a long time. Can we please have a crossing guard at Yale and Rutgers? Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. Is that your first public speech?
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Melissa Sasserson. I live at 625 University Place. in Swarthmore, of course. That was my son, Declan Jefferson, also
Well
at
done,
625. Thank you. We know the Public Safety Committee has done the research. We know that Galen Rutgers is hazardous for adults to cross, even more so for our kids. We learned from the Department of Transportation that there are at least 64 kids that live south of Yale and attend SRS. There are currently crossing guards, as Diane mentioned, with lights and stop signs at the other locations at Swarthmore and Chester. We know that we're very happy that you're making changes at Yale and Rutgers, but those other crossing guard locations have even better ways to stop traffic than we currently will have, or that we will have in the future at Yale and Rutgers. So my question to you is, are those children that live in other parts of Swarthmore more important than the ones that live south of Yale?
Was that a rhetorical question?
Well, you can answer it. They're all sitting right here. Just remember that when considering a budget, as Diane mentioned, everything on it can be fixed or replaced, but our children cannot. Consider our request for a crossing guard a request to keep Swarthmore's kids safe.
Thank you. Something that you should think about. Anybody else? Thank you very much. I value your comment, but particularly Declan's comment. Thank you very much. One of the things that you should give some thought to, and this is, part of it was, you should understand the crossing guards are directed by the police department. And so I was in contact with Chief Craig today to get the hours that the crossing guards were at the other 3 locations. And he sort of in passing, well, it wasn't in passing, he made the point that the guard hours at those other locations were 8:15, 8:45, 3:15, 3:45. But they're very close to the school. And so 2 questions arise. If there were a crossing guard, you should think about this in the event that your request is favorably considered by the Public Safety Committee and Council. You should think about what the hours should be. How long does it take the kids who are on foot, particularly, to walk from that point to SRS? So if there were a crossing guard in the morning, what would and again, I'm assuming it's a half an hour. What would the half-hour period be? So I think you should have some thoughts on that. But possibly of greater, I use the word concern, but I've thought about this all day. And that is that kids going to school are pretty much all going at the same time. Kids coming home from school on foot aren't necessarily all going together en masse. And so, depending upon, I don't know about your kids, my kids tended to dawdle on the way home. They're now 51 and 48, but I know that's how old my kids are. And so, but it is unlikely there'll be a crossing guard at that location for an hour in the afternoon as the kids over time make their way back from school by whatever route or after whatever activities they may encounter. So I think you should be giving some thought to that, and because I would guess that Public Safety Committee may in fact be musing about that. I'll call it is sort of a problem, but that factor that is different from the other locations because the crossing guards are so close to the school. So I just mentioned that as something, both those issues, morning times and what's the situation after school is over when kids are making their way back across that intersection at different times, not as a group. That having been said, is there any other comment on that issue tonight? Or any other issue? And then if not, we're going to move out of public comment. You're all perfectly happy. We'd be happy to have you stay. Yes, please, Ross.
I actually have a question for the group. I've been on the council for 10 months, that's okay. And during that time, I've watched Dave Murphy on Public Works worked really hard to get the flashing lights at Yale because he's been very concerned about the safety there. And at the meetings that we've had, the only public input we've had is one family who was very opposed to our efforts to put flashing lights there. We have not had people coming in and asking for crossing guards or flashing lights or anything. We've just been, and so my question is, this is not going to the crossing guard issue. This goes to the flashing lights or whatever. Is there anybody here who opposes those flashing lights going in? Okay. I just wanted to hear that. Okay? Because my sense is that most people are in favor of that in addition to a crossing guard. And I just wanted to get the sense of that.
Okay, a hand in the back.
Yes, I'm sorry, should I come up? I did want to address the issue of the hours. You said if anyone had any
No,
comments.
don't address it at the Public Safety Committee.
Oh, okay, I didn't know if you
No,
meant
no,
right
thank you.
now. Okay.
But, Bill, I mean, the front end of it is just picking the time, whether it's not 8:15, it's at 8 o'clock and 8:30. The back end of it is potentially a meaningful issue, given, for the reason I indicated. I may be wrong, maybe everybody now leaves school and walks directly home together as a group, holding hands, but I assume that's not the case. But, if there are no other public comments tonight, the public comment period's ended. You're welcome to stay. We'd love to have you stay if you want to, but we're going to get on with the rest of our business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all I have. I have nothing under President other than that. Lauren, environment.
Sure. Can you?
Yeah, the EAC sponsored a forum on the Mariner East 2 pipeline on Sunday at 2 o'clock in this room. It was standing room only. It was really excellent. A lot of information was shared and different perspectives on the pipeline that's going to be coming through. It was moderated by the League of Women Voters. Leanne Kruger-Brannicky spoke. A woman named Roberta Winters from the League of Women Voters, and Eve Miari, who's in this coalition for community safety, Middletown Coalition for Community Safety. So there's going to be 11 and a half miles of pipeline in Delaware County out of the whole 346 or whatever. It's a very densely populated county. It is very, well, gases that are kind of liquefied under a lot of pressure, and people are concerned that just want it to be safe. And technically, well, I should say theoretically, pipelines are safer than any other method of transport for these gases, but it has to be done safely. So that was the content of the hearing, and hopefully there'll be a public hearing in Delaware County about this. Leanne is pressing for one, so.
One agency will be in charge of that.
There's been a big debate.
There was one in Chester. There was one in Chester County. There have been some in some of the other counties, but there hasn't been one in Delaware. And
It's the PUC or the Department of Environmental Protection.
I think it's the DEP. Yeah. So thank you. That's it.
That's it? Will your committee be meeting this month?
No.
Finance, our chair is not present. There was a meeting of the Finance Committee, and I'll make a comment and then Jane can add as appropriate. Jane had prepared, it's the borough manager, for those of you in TV land, the borough manager had prepared a preliminary budget and a budget memorandum of the kind that she does each year, and which both, and then explained from the budget increases or decreases on the revenue side or expenditure side that were projected. There was some discussion at that meeting as to the size of the fund balance and how much of that fund balance should be continued in the next year, or perhaps it applied to tax reduction or other purposes. Jane, will we have, will council for its next week meeting have a copy of those two documents? Is that the next step?
I sent them.
Oh, everybody, so you've all seen them?
I don't think I will update it.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
that's something big happens.
But I do ask each of the committees through whom community bodies request money from council to rigorously examine each of those requests so that each committee feels confident in coming to council with the recommendation as stated or not, or greater or less, so that council as a whole has the benefit of your thoughts in considering what the budget should be. Some are significant amount, some are not so significant, but each merits careful review. Jane, do you want to have anything to add on that subject? Or Ross, was that the meeting?
Yeah. Actually, before we do that, the solicitor has to leave, and I should have asked you, Mr. Borough. There are a couple of things that I wanted to get his opinions on before he left.
Okay, thank you.
So one of them is actually under Public Works, which is the purchase and installation of an electric charger, which I think Dave is going to talk about a little bit. And we had discussed with the solicitor that the way these chargers work is you're basically plugged into an electrical outlet somewhere. And when the parking lot was redone, the outlet was installed. In fact, there's a cone sitting on the sidewalk where the charger could be hooked up. The only issue that I had raised with the solicitor was, is it okay for the borough to be giving away electricity? So.
Yeah, I think it's an issue that needs to be worked through. I mean, I know it's not big money, but it's still kind of, on its face, a little tawdry to be paying for the Tesla owners, get free electricity. And a couple of ideas Jane and I kicked around. You shouldn't be spending public money for the benefit of private individuals.
We're very select. We're
Yeah,
it's really like funding a library or funding.
I mean, I don't
fire.
Right, if I get a natural gas powered vehicle, I'm not getting it for free. I still have to pay for it. And we're all for encouraging electricity-run vehicles, but that doesn't mean that the taxpayer should be paying for it. But I want to find a way to make it work. So a couple ideas we kicked around was you could have an honor box, and you say what the charge is for a fill up, and we ask people to put their money in. I think that's one option. Then maybe a better one is that it would be something where you have to come into Borough Hall during hours and get a key to unlock it and pay whatever we decide a key. Whatever it's estimated that the actual costs are.
Was there a credit card version of that too, Jane?
There really isn't a credit card version. Apparently, it's hard to make money because it's hard to recoup your costs. So there's no credit card version. So if we bought this accessory, which costs $78, then you would have to decide, and you can turn it off if you don't want to use it. To get a key, somebody would have to come into a library or a borough office or wherever and pay whatever amount of money you decide.
Does anybody have any idea how long? Are there other cars out there other than the Tesla
Oh, yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
Well,
There's a lot of different.
that you plug in? But how long does it last? How long do they
There's
have
a few,
to?
there's a Leaf.
There's three.
A Leaf.
Okay.
Tesla's very expensive.
How long do they have to be able to charge to be
That's
charged?
what they're trying to do, because remember, the intent of this one is not for people to charge their cars here, it's more to top them off so that there's no reason for them not to come into town in their, either the Nissan or there's the BMW now, or there's the Ford or the Teslas.
Chevy Volt.
Chevy Volt too, which is a
Okay,
combination.
of course.
So there are, so the idea is that we don't expect anybody to park their car there and keep feeding the meter so that they can
Right.
take the 8 hours it takes to charge their car. Normally people charge them overnight.
Right.
is it?
It's actually a 2-hour meter and you can't react to 2-hour meter, so that's a good
So, I
thing.
mean, okay, so that's its own limitation on how long they can use it, and also how long one car can tie up that charge.
Right.
Totally by coincidence, this weekend, my son Chris and I took a college tour to Massachusetts, to Amherst, Wesley, and Tufts, and other schools. At 2 of the 4 schools in their towns, I saw these chargers, and I noticed 2 things. They had a sign on them saying, if you want to use this, you have to call security at this number.
No, is this at the colleges or in the towns?
This is at the college.
Oh.
Okay, and then I also noticed that they have these big, like, I'll call them phone cords that connect the plugger to the thing. And they're all taped up with duct tape because the cars run over the cord and break the wire, and so they all had duct tape on them. So you might want to have a warning on there saying, push the cord away or don't run over it.
Well, Swarthmore College has one in their lot that they actually don't charge for. They said it's actually not used very much, but if you put it in, it's on Fieldhouse Lane behind the little houses. It's the same brand.
There's one in Media Borough, but it was provided by a nonprofit that wanted to promote this, and they bear the cost.
Actually, it's not working either.
Is it not?
No.
Yeah, I mean, the borough agreed to dedicate a public spot to it, but the borough's not paying for the electricity.
And a part of what Bob was saying earlier was this idea that we need to kind of sort this out. We don't have a clue as to how much is going to get used, or even when it gets used, how much it's actually going to cost us.
Not the table completely, but I think we have a longish agenda. We can work on it again in public works.
Or we could just, if you think we do know that under this option, you can control the cost. There's plenty of money and we have a signed budget and so on. So it's not like we need special council authorization. Of course, I just wouldn't buy it and put it in without council knowing about it. I mean, the entire cost is only $1,100. So we could move ahead and purchase it
Well,
without,
taking up Mr. Murphy's comment,
Yeah.
the reason we're on this is
Right.
so you can give us a statement that you're not tonight prepared to offer an opinion on this, but we'll consider it.
Yeah, I think,
Let's think about
I
how
think we
we're-
all need to be thinking about
Okay.
options. And I put 2 options on the table, there may be others.
Okay. And you had another issue?
The assignment of the trash contract.
Okay.
Which, I don't know if you all know the background, but Suburban has sold its assets to a new company, which is B&L. And they did so, B&L is already operating. And under our contract with them, they are not allowed to assign without getting the borough's consent. And they are now, after having done it, asking for the borough's consent. I have no objection to the borough consenting to it, but the form of consent they sent is overly broad, and it's asking the borough to state that there's no defaults under the contract, et cetera. I don't see why we would make those statements. This is their business, not ours. So I think I would like to retool the consent so it just says, if council is inclined, that the borough consents to the assignment. I'm not going to, represent that they have not reached anything, because I think they have. And if tomorrow, if somebody calls tomorrow and says, last week they damaged my property, and I don't want to have inadvertently released them from that obligation. So I would, if you're going to be inclined to agree to the consent, I would just like it to be subject to my revisions to the actual document.
Okay. It's a very odd situation because under the agreement we had with Suburban, they had absolutely no right to transfer our contract to anybody else without our prior approval, and we
Wake up one morning.
wake up one morning and there's a paper saying they've sold all their assets and feel-good trash companies now collecting your trash, and thank you very much, and we're going to use the same people and crews to do it. And
I
so-
assume it's a bunch of towns, Bob?
Yes,
Oh, yes.
so it's my knowledge
Yeah,
of Delaware
I
County.
think they still have a small roll-off business, is what I just heard today, but I don't think they're gonna have a problem.
But I assume the contracts for other towns are similar.
Yes.
They just kind of get a carte blanche, and
Yeah.
you can fight us
That's
on
right,
or you
right.
can not.
So is there any, we don't have to do this in any particular period of time.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we need to approve it tonight, but rather between now and next week, you can come up with something and
Okay.
give it to them, and if they say quibble, then we'll quibble.
Yeah.
It looks like they retain the same workforce for what it's worth.
Same trucks, just instead.
Yeah, they're sold all their physical assets.
Just
and
gonna
so-
hit the trucks now.
But there's stickers on it.
Okay, Bob,
They
anything else?
the borough has a surety bond by which
Mhm.
surety has promised to fulfill their side of the contract. You could, make a claim against that bond and they'd be required to provide an alternative, or they'd be required to provide trash hauling at the same price. But that could be that could be less seamless than consenting to the assignment that they have requested.
And if they, now that they have it, fail to perform under the contract as transferred, we have whatever rights we have.
We still have,
and
the
we're still
bond
supported.
stays in place until the expiration of the contract.
Okay, so on that thing, tonight we will do nothing more, but thank you.
We'll put it on the agenda. And do you want to do the electric car charging in your committee, or do you want to bring it up next week? I'm just doing.
Is there any urgency
Doing the
to it?
agenda. Not if nobody minds cone sitting there.
No, take it to his committee, so because it's through the, let it come back in when,
Yeah, we'll
when
meet-
his
we'll
committee
meet
has
this month.
thought about it and has on pricing and on activating key or no key or whatever, has a
We can
recommendation.
research it a little, see what other towns do.
Right, sure. Thanks.
If there's nothing else for
Oh, yeah, thank
the
you.
media council meeting tonight.
Okay, thank you. Now, Bob had a conflict because we changed our meeting out from under.
Thursday has diminished our, attendance.
Yeah.
Good night.
Really?
I barely got.
Oh, you mean a member attendance?
Remember?
Well, we heard where you were.
Right.
Your wife told
Oh.
us.
We heard you were in the shower.
Yeah.
For everyone's sake.
Singing. She said singing. I think she said singing. Okay, so anything else for the finance committee tonight? Ross, do you have anything from that committee beyond just what I said about we began to discuss? Okay.
I have one question, Dave.
Yes, sir.
Jane, the preliminary budget, as you said, has a bunch of changes on it. Is there like a marked up one, or just look at the percentages and that's based on one?
Well, you can look.
Like the fire department
Right, the
changes
fire
there?
department is the biggest single thing,
Sure.
and I was gonna say that tonight. If you look in the memo, there's one thing, what are the major expenditures, and that's where you'll see. And
Okay.
absolutely, the easiest way to see it is to look at percentage changes. When it's tiny, it means, it's a small personnel increase or something like that. The finance committee requested that the budget be amended to include the requested increase to the fire department, so that's in there, and you'll
Great.
see that.
And the fire company.
So
The fire
so
company,
for
that's
Ross,
what I'm saying.
No, both of them.
Well,
I thought the request both for the police and fire.
There was really no police
There-
request, it was all contracted around, yeah.
So, this is for the group set this, but for those that haven't done the budget process yet, we try to put out basically what's a flat budget, essentially, over prior year, other than our contractual obligations, which are police. Fire department has a big request, so the finance department said, hey, put that in the preliminary budget because we know that that's happening. From there, all the stuff that rolls up at our committee, if we all kind of agree in kind, then we put all that in, and then we kind of take a look at it again. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yep.
Okay.
thank you.
And there are two big unknowns, we have no idea what our sewer increase will be. Not really that big a deal because it just gets translated right to a sewer fee that people pay, so it's a pass-through cost. Under the borough code, those are run as enterprise funds, so those aren't absorbed through taxes. One of our bigger expenditures is our health insurance, and I estimated at 10%. In the last 5 years, it's been coming in under 10%. We'll have to see.
Okay, thank you. General government.
We will have a meeting, which will be on Monday, the 17th of October at 8:30 in the morning.
Okay.
And at our last meeting, we had requests for support made by 4 community groups: the library, Town Center Inc., the Community Center, and the aging group, which they're calling Swarthmore Seasons. I just want to mention The library is seeking an increase of 27%. I'm not going to go into that further here tonight. We'll talk about it more in committee and in the full group, and there's lots to talk about that. Town center is asking for a 25% increase. Again, we'll talk about that after the committee makes a recommendation. Community center is flat. The aging in place I wanted to mention because this is a new initiative. David, you're familiar with this for those who weren't there for this. The three individuals who were doing the action group made a proposal that they will, at some point in the future, create a corporation called Swarthmore Seasons. And that corporation would hire an individual who would work to implement some of the recommendations of the Aging in Place Task Force. So this is new and different than what we've seen before, and I expect that we'll have a more full discussion after the committee discusses it on the 17th, because that's an entirely new proposal. That's all I have, Les.
Okay, thank you very much. Planning and zoning, Mary?
Our committee did meet last month. The main issues on our agenda were sort of a review of what the Planning Commission had done at its meeting last month. And the first thing is the review of the land development application for their new press box and bleachers on the baseball field that I had mentioned in a prior meeting. The Planning Commission did vote to approve that application. There will be a resolution that we'll have here next week that we'll be taking a vote on, hopefully. But in my view, and I think in the Planning Commission's view, it's really what I would call a de minimis project. It doesn't have any impact on traffic or on parking, hopefully. They're not expecting a big influx of baseball fans to come. What they're trying to do is make the...
Press box is a big word from the press.
Well, press box, but they are trying to make the bleachers ADA compliant. And currently they are not. So they're taking down a couple of existing bleachers and then making, nice new bleachers with ADA compliant seating. So the waivers that they've requested are from the traffic review plan, I think the parking plan, stormwater management, and because this is such a small project, they're asking to just combine the preliminary and final review into one. So we'll have the resolution next week on that. It was a very long Planning Commission meeting, went until after 10 p.m. because the other piece was that building that we talked about before, the BEP. I keep wanting to call it BED. The BEP building, that did not finish up at last month's meeting. That's going to take another meeting to talk about. And I think, Jane, are they going to meet this month or next?
Well, Joe's comments are just done tomorrow. So I think if they feel his comments are extensive, they're going to want to meet with the Planning Commission in October. If they feel they're not so extensive and they don't need clarification and they just want to answer them, make the necessary amendments, then it will be November. So I don't think we know that yet.
This building is the new building up by the meeting house.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're tearing down 2 existing buildings and then putting these 3 departments in this one building. So we did have, as I said, our committee meeting, and in addition to talking about these 2 things, we also talked about there was going to be an application for a special exception before the zoning board for someone who has been renting out on Airbnb. Received, I think, one of the letters from the borough manager that said, here's what you have to do, or you're going to have to apply for a special exception to be a bed and breakfast, and they are doing that.
Okay.
So that will be before the zoning board. I don't think our committee will be meeting this month. Don't think so.
Okay.
I just want to correct that BEP building also has concurrent with the land development application, the conditional use application.
Oh, yeah.
And that will require borough council action. The building is 75 feet in height. Anything over 35 feet requires conditional use approval, which comes recommendation from the Planning Commission, approval or disapproval by borough council. And it will run concurrently with the preliminary application.
Do they need that for the street widening too, or?
Well, they were very cautious under the ordinance that was passed last year about the transition zone between institutional and residential properties. any development, they are required a conditional use, and this one is some changes to Whittier space. But the big part of it is the height of the building.
Yeah,
So it's 2.
okay, thank you.
Okay, no meeting this month for your committee, thank you very much. Public safety, you reported that meeting will be when?
The 18th.
Yeah.
In the
I
evening,
think so. 7:30 p.m.
okay. Public Works, David?
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll talk about the electric car chargers, we're done with that. We can vote on a resolution next week
Which
for
one?
the tractor.
Well, I would rather do it now because he wants to get it out, but if you're more comfortable doing it next week, that's fine too.
Fine doing it now. I make a motion that we authorize the sale of our lovely 1999 Kubota lawn tractor. On municipal or not? What do we do now?
Sorry, so you already authorized the sale, this is actually the person who's buying it.
Oh, this is authorizing the actual sale.
Mr.
Berube, Dwayne Berube, 97 Penn Burn Road, Burnville, Pennsylvania, 19506, for the price of $1,551.
Amazing. I move that we authorize the sale.
Okay, in the form of resolution number 2016-12.
16-12.
That's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the sale of this highly sought-after piece of equipment to Mr. Berube, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Sale is approved. I vote aye.
We do have a limited group here, so I'll just briefly cover. Public Works did meet. The two groups that spoke to us regarding the 2017 budget were Swarthmore Recreation Association, SRA, and EAC. Swarthmore or SRA had submitted in writing $20,000, and then in person said $25,000, which is flat from prior year. I think they were trying to go back to where they were, and they have been kicked out of caves where they've stored their summer program equipment for the past quarter century. Caves is redoing their basement, and they're going to put offices or stuff down there. So that's going to cost them about $2,600 a year, so that's a new cost. I apologize, I circulated the minutes within committee, but I didn't send it out to everybody yet. They have some other things in mind, some maybe community programming that had to do with the aging place. They didn't have a lot of other reasoning behind going back to the $25,000. Susan Kelly from EAC was lovely and spoke with us with some very modest requests relating to Crum Creek. One that I thought we were all in accordance with was the canine waste disposal stations. It's about a $500 expense. Essentially, it's a little sign, curb your dog and some baggies. And then a little bit of planning stuff and possibly doing a porta potty in the summer, which is about $100 a month for the warm weather hours. So real small stuff that would just fit into the Public Works budget in general. Cuzzy spoke a bit about the new snowplow that we were looking at. It was going to be a big item, right? If we were going to purchase it, it was going to be $25,000 or something around that. That has since evolved into a great conversation with a rent-to-own type of agreement, so we can try out for winter to see if it will plow the underpass. And the cost is $1,100.
No, it's $2,000 a month.
I was looking at my old one,
75%
$2,000 a month.
of the purchase price, right?
But just for the winter months, so we don't.
Oh, just 3 months, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we really, I think if we decide after a huge snowstorm in December that we want to buy it and there's money in the capital funds, they're not going to hold us to renting it for the next few months, so.
Correct. If they do, we'll give it back. Tough on that.
But it's a great way, for at least for the first winter, to spend $6,000
It's nice.
Okay.
instead of $25,000. So that was another expense. That is about all the topics we covered. We will meet again in October, 8:30.
What date?
Monday the 17th. So 2 weeks.
8:30 in the morning?
No, isn't it the 27th of October?
Yes.
Use the
So
form.
I'm doing your old
No,
meeting.
that's okay.
So 27th at 8:30.
8:30 in the morning?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Think anything else? Dave?
That's all I have, thank you.
Any other business to be brought before the committee, the meeting tonight, council? No?
I would like to say I love that everybody turned out for that crossing guard thing.
That's nice.
I kind of kicked that back to my wife, I said, well, you guys should all get a petition again here.
Oh,
They
so we have you to it?
Well, that intersection's been a pain, I mean, that's the reason I'm here.
I know.
Was the start of all that walking and pedestrians.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well,
it was nice to see everybody turn
Well
out.
done. Tim, Mayor?
Thanks. My kids actually made it through and survived without a crossing guard at the intersection, as a lot of kids did. But still, I think it is good to see, and it is part of kind of our overall goal to try to make the borough more pedestrian friendly. And I think the roundabout was a huge first step. I'm constantly amazed at how many people actually do stop and everything else, and that it still works. I had inquired with the police department as to whether they give tickets for cars that have windows that are tinted too dark. It's actually against the law in Pennsylvania to have your car windshield or side, or your driver's side window to be tinted to a certain degree. And the reason I bring it up is because people, when they, in a car like that, you can't make eye contact with them at something like the roundabout because the windows are too dark. But that involves a very expensive piece of equipment that you'd have to get to actually, to figure out exactly how dark the tint is, kind of thing, by the way the laws are. But that's just. But we did have walk to school day on Wednesday, which was a success. As you know, we had the Truckathon and the Arts Festival this past month, both of which were highly successful. The Central Park was jam-packed on the Truckathon. Families brought blankets and chairs, and somehow the co-op managed to get everything cleaned up in time for the farmers market the next morning, and the art festival, which the Community Arts Center tells me was another great success, and they're very pleased with having it here in Swarthmore again. And that's pretty much all I had today.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment tonight? No? I do have, circling back to the park, to Little Creek Park, I pass on an observation made by the woman with whom I live. There are a number of nice benches that have been made in Little Creek Park. I don't know who made them.
We did discuss, this came up, maybe afterward, but continue.
It has been drawn to my attention that rather than being placed in places in the park where the ground is level, they're all placed up against a tree on the mound of stuff that is put in little pyramids around the tree, which seems both aesthetically unpleasing and uncomfortable if you're sitting on the bench. And when walking the dog, I pointed out to the woman with whom I live, I think the reason they put them there is because they want to be able to mow the grass without moving the benches.
I think because he has moved them, I don't know if that's a permanent spot for them. Because he said they'd move them with a chain, like you couldn't pick them up.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
That was
But
the-
anyway,
that was
because
the-
recently,
Oh, the
2
table,
days
sorry.
ago, they were still up against the trees, so.
I'll check it out.
We're gonna do some feng shui down there when we do.
Okay. Okay, I just felt obliged so I could go home tonight and say I brought
It's nice to
borough
have
council.
You want that in the minutes?
No, thank you. You don't have to put that in the minutes, so I'll just play it for her on YouTube,
There you go.
so she knows that I actually did it. Do you, Borough Manager, 2017 tree removal
Just
contract?
look forward to we do this every year, we go out to bid, and then for the year, whenever there's a dead street tree, we get 60% of the cost of removal as contracted from the homeowner. Once that's received, we put a call into the contractor, and they come out and move the tree, and pay the cost, the remaining 40%.
So, but it's on the agenda because this will,
Just so you know, we'll get authorization for it.
for the bidding?
Correct.
Okay,
It'll be on the agenda just to authorize it, and I'll send out a copy of the contract, people can see it.
okay, good, thank you. Any other business tonight? Mr. Murphy?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, I don't think there's discussion on the motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.